Hoş geldin and welcome to the Turkish Easy podcast. Yes, today we have a wonderful guest, which is Aybars Öztuna. He's an MSc and MBA. He works as a policy consultant and he's the CEO of the Geospatial Intelligence Institute. And we will talk about his experiences regarding the geopolitics in Turkey, about the perspective of in EU integration and Turkey's role in the world.
Turkish Easy is the podcast about German-Turkish relations. We talk about classic topics like economy, politics, history, and security, but also about shared culture, from football to the arts. In conversations with experts, we explore the challenges and highlight the potential of a strong bridge between Germany and Turkey.
Aybars, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
You work, besides working as a consultant, as the CEO of the Geospatial Intelligence Institute. What is this? What are you doing there?
Absolutely. So geospatial intelligence is an evolving field, and especially it is important for understanding the geopolitics in a more scientific way, I should say. So, of course, it's a evolving sector. We do analyze open source data that we get from the satellites and different kind of photogrammetry, and make it as a more briefly understanding material. So that's what we do, and hopefully we will be also sharing with you the yearly report after July.
Yeah, interesting. So you're working together with like state actors or the private people, or like who is demanding this kind of information?
So mostly we try to establish a private company partnerships across different industries, because geospatial intelligence per se is, of course, the nature of the intelligence agencies. But we are more focused on partnerships with private sectors, because as you know, like Amazon, Google Maps, or in Turkey, Trendyol, Getir, these are companies that actually needs analysis, geopolitical analysis, but also the geospatial intelligence analysis in their businesses. So we try to make collaborations with them.
So it's basically to understand also giving this data what kind of strategic downsides maybe a city or a country has. Are there enough hospitals? Are there enough, you told about marine systems in your podcast that we will link later as well, and about different topics, everything that is given maybe that conventional sources maybe would not show. This is what you try to improve here with this business.
Exactly. So imagine you have all these data around you, but we try to make it simpler, so for you to understand and give brief analysis to it. So you will be given a map per se, and this is usually we are trying to make an AI-based system. So you will be seeing different kind of variations in the map, spatial data. So it will be easier and more concise data for you.
Yes, concise and precise policy recommendation is a very important thing, especially when it comes to strategic questions of the future. And for this, it is a very interesting field you're operating in. We would like to dive in recommendations also for geopolitics, because you are focusing on this in your public and private life. So as we are talking about the German-Turkish relations, how do you think about the German-Turkish relations at this point of time?
So Turkey's relationship with Germany has long been an essential pillar of its foreign policy, dating back to early 20th century. Over the years, this partnership has evolved across a range of domains, from diplomatic ties and economic exchanges to military cooperation and geospatial intelligence. As both countries continue to navigate complex geopolitical landscapes, the question remains, is Germany still a key partner for Turkey in the 21st century? Germany and Turkey share deep historical ties.
Yes.
Particularly through migration. In the 1960s, a significant number of Turkish laborers moved to Germany under a bilateral agreement, forming one of the largest Turkish diasporas outside Turkey. This migration has created a unique link between the two countries, not just in terms of people-to-people relations, but also in terms of economic and cultural exchanges. However, the partnership between Turkey and Germany has also been framed by larger political and strategic considerations. During the Cold War, Germany, as part of the Western Bloc, was an ally of Turkey, which was a crucial member of NATO. The partnership was reinforced by shared interests in countering the Soviet Union and ensuring stability in the Middle East and the broader Mediterranean region. Germany's economic strength, combined with Turkey's geostrategic location, created a symbiotic relationship that served both countries well during the Cold War. In the post-Cold War era, however, both countries have been faced with new challenges and opportunities that have reshaped the nature of their partnership. Economically, Germany remains one of Turkey's most significant partners. In 2022, Germany was Turkey's largest trading partner within the European Union and its second largest overall after China. Bilateral trade between the two nations reached over 40 billion euros. With Germany being Turkey's top export market in the EU. Turkish exports to Germany include textiles, machinery, electronics, and automotive parts, while Germany exports industrial goods, chemicals, and high-tech machinery to Turkey. Germany also plays a central role in Turkey's economy through investments and joint ventures. German companies are active across various sectors in Turkey, including automotive engineering and telecommunications. Also, many Turkish businesses have established a presence in Germany, contributing to the interlinked economic landscape. The Turkish diaspora in Germany, now numbering around 3 million people, facilitates these business connections by acting as a bridge between the two countries. Despite challenges such as differences over human rights issues and treatment of the Kurdish minority in Turkey, economic ties remain largely resilient. As both countries deal with the economic repercussions of the COVID-19 pandemic, the interdependence of their economies could help stabilize their relationship in the coming years. Geopolitically speaking, Germany remains an important partner for Turkey still, especially within the context of their shared membership in NATO. Both nations recognize the importance of a stable euro and the need for a unified response to regional challenges, including the Russian threat, the Middle Eastern crisis, and the growing instability in North Africa. However, their geopolitical priorities are not always aligned.
And this is the interesting part, yes.
Turkey's foreign policy has become more assertive in recent years, particularly in the Middle East and the Eastern Mediterranean. For example, Turkey's involvement in this Syrian civil war, where it has supported opposition groups, has often been at odds with Germany's more cautious approach. Germany has also been critical of Turkey's military actions in Syria.
That's true.
Particularly against Kurdish groups that Germany views as terrorist organizations. In the Eastern Mediterranean, Turkey's drilling operations for natural gas in contested waters, particularly of Cyprus, have caused tensions not just with Greece but also with Germany.
Yes. And this is a very, very interesting aspect. So basically, what you're saying now is we have two countries which are dependent on each other, which support each other, but in some aspects have contradictions. That is true. But I would like to understand from you diving into this now, Germany maybe reached a certain peak. When we look at economics, you mentioned that Germany is in the economic crisis right now. When it comes to the meaning of European Union's share in the world, in politics, geopolitics, economics, the share is decreasing. So, what do you think about Germany being a Turkish partner in a factor in the Turkish strategy in the future? Aren't there other countries which are more interesting to dive in from the Turkish perspective?
So, Turkey's aspiration to become a member of European Union has been a significant part of its foreign policy for decades.
Exactly.
However, the journey toward full membership has been marked by numerous hurdles, setbacks, and evolving dynamics. Today, Turkey's pursuit of EU membership remains a topic of both strategic importance and domestic debate. I think that the goal transformed into something more nuanced and pragmatic.
Exactly.
Turkey's relationship with EU, okay, let's maybe briefly discuss the historical progress, and then I would like to look from the Germany's side, because it will, I think, deepen our understanding, and maybe I would also like to share my perspective on this side. The Ankara Agreement of 1963 established a framework for an eventual customs union, and in 1995, Turkey officially entered into a customs union with the EU. However, full membership remained a distant goal. The turning point came in 1999 when Turkey was officially recognized as a candidate for EU membership. This acknowledgement was a major milestone, signaling Turkey's ambition to integrate more closely with the West and adopt EU standards of governance, human rights, and democracy. In 2005, negotiations for full membership formally began. Initially, there was optimism in both Turkey and the EU that the process would lead to Turkey becoming a member of the Union. And the European Union's interest in expanding to include Turkey was driven by geopolitical, economic, and strategic considerations, such as Turkey's location at the crossroads of Europe, Asia, and the Middle East, and its role as a key player in regional security. However, since the start of the negotiations, progress has been slow and fraught with challenges. Key obstacles have included disagreements over human rights, democratic standards, and Turkey's foreign policy. The rise of nationalist and populist movements within Europe, coupled with rising skepticism about further EU enlargement, which I think is a potentially negative thing, which I would like to discuss later, has also complicated Turkey's path to membership. Despite these challenges, I believe that the need of Turkey as an EU member is more relevant than ever.
For what side? For both? Or
Let's look from Germany's perspective.
Yes.
For the last 3 years, I was privileged to visit Germany and discuss the current advantages and disadvantages with its stakeholders. While Germany has historically played a key role in shaping EU enlargement policies, it is now facing internal challenges that could make Turkey's membership more appalling than it may have seemed in the past. Issues such as aging population, rising housing costs, labor shortages, and economic stagnation are placing significant pressure on Germany's future. In this context, Turkey's membership in the EU could be seen as potential solution to several of these challenges. As one of the largest and youngest populations in Europe, Turkey could help address some of Germany's most pressing domestic issues, including its labor market needs and demographic imbalance. Germany is experiencing a set of interlinked social and economic challenges that are placing increasing strain on its infrastructure, economy, and social systems. Perhaps one of the most significant concerns is Germany's aging population. According to German Federal Statistics Office, the country's population is increasingly skewing older, with the number of people over the age of 65 expected to reach 30% of the total population by 2035. This demographic shift has profound implications for Germany's economy, particularly with respect to pensions, healthcare, and the labor market. One of the most visible manifestations of Germany's demographic and economic pressures in the rapid increase in housing prices, particularly in urban areas like Berlin, Munich, and Hamburg. The demand for housing continues to outpace supply, driven not only by the growing population, but also by rising interest rates. A limited number of available housing units, and an influx of migrants. The housing crisis has become one of the central issues of domestic politics, with calls for more affordable housing and increased construction activity. However, addressing the housing shortage will require significant investment in infrastructure, urban planning, something that could be more easily achieved with a larger and younger workforce, like Turkey, contributing to construction and development. At the same time, Germany is facing a critical labor shortage, as you know pretty well. According to the Federal Employment Agency, there were approximately 1.8 million job vacancies in Germany in 2022, with many sectors, including healthcare, education, construction, and manufacturing, struggling to fill positions. With a large portion of Germany's workforce retiring in the next decade, there is an urgent need for new workers to support economic growth, fund social services, and maintain the country's high standard of living. Germany's current immigration policies, while accommodating, are insufficient to meet the demand for workers across multiple industries. Turkey's position as a country with a large, young, and increasingly skilled population presents a unique opportunity for Germany. The country has a population of over 85 million people, as you know, with a median age of just 32 years.
Which is sort of just stating,
yes.
If Turkey would join the European Union, it would be automatically be the biggest country in the European Union by people, by population. And this is just a side factor, okay? But
exactly.
It is larger than most of the Eastern countries, also of Netherlands and Belgium. You can accumulate them together, and you might have a country being as big population-wise like Turkey. And this is, of course, a factor. But please continue.
No, you are right. This is one of the, I think, setbacks that German officials are right about, because this is a very large population that can possibly hinder economic growth and may be more potential side effects. However, let's maybe think for a moment. For the last couple of years, the EU enlargement, especially the Brexit, and the EU's goal to enlarge with new countries, which has downsides, I assume, but I think Turkey is more relevant than ever in terms of satisfying the needs of EU's needs now.
This is quite right. I just want to point out here that some of the arguments which are usually stated then is that we see already that there is a certain brain drain in Turkey when it comes to, for example, doctors. We have a lack of doctors in Germany. We need people to work in our hospitals, and especially doctors from Turkey are working very efficient and productive there. So, but of course, this brain drain certainly has problems inside Turkey because you have a shortage yourself, and therefore migration can be a solution to this. But from the analytics that we see in Germany right now, it can be only like a little short-term solution. But you have to really redefine the German pension system, the German also way of looking at work. So maybe you should not allow people to retire at a certain age where they are productive still. So it's the whole educational pension system must be considered while looking at this demographics. Like why to understand there are some countries, especially in the European Union also, we don't have to look to Africa or to Turkey or the Arabic world. why are there too less children in the families? How can we support these families? But this is like a bigger aspect. Something that you touched upon, and this is I think very important. There is a need for an integration because of these economic and social aspects. And one idea I would like to ask you is that you can have an integration with countries like Turkey, but also, for example, Morocco, Egypt, the countries in the Caucasus and the West Balkan, without being a full member of the European Union.
Absolutely.
So then you call it whatever you would like. It's maybe the Greater European Economic Zone or the Centralized Partnership or whatever. But tearing down the hurdles, the walls we have in visa questions, in economic questions, such as like the European Union, in my opinion, tends to go to New Zealand, to the Mercosur countries, to Canada, so countries that are pretty far away. You need several hours of flying there, or you need weeks of shipping. Yeah, why not to have, for example, visa-free travel regime or an economic free regime, free trade agreement with Turkey, for example, or with those kind of countries? Yeah, what do you think about that?
That's absolutely more reasonable, I think, and more doable.
Exactly, faster,
in the short
yes.
term, it's faster. We can establish this in the next few months
Exactly.
pretty easily. But still, upon the discussions in the Bundestag for the last 3 years, also this is something I have discussed with the German politicians also, and most of them share the same perspective, because there are very simple issues that is still problematic, like visa issues. There are a lot of business owners and even students that would like to Germany.
Exactly.
But facing longer visa times and stuff. This is outdated. And this is not for Germany-Turkey relations. This is one of the problems facing, I think, the world today. We have to be more strategic about how we look at these globalization trends that could actually benefit for both countries. And you are right. Maybe I wouldn't... So if you could ask me a couple of years back, of course, the Turkey as potential membership in EU was maybe on the table. But now maybe Turkey also do not really want to enter the EU per se.
This is my question. So please give me an insight on that. You already mentioned we have for more than 60 years the discussions of Turkey entering the European Union. It was always said from it. Now take the Turkish perspective. These people in Brussels or in Paris, in Berlin, they always say you can come to our club. But for more than 60 years, you have a situation that it is not it's more like a promise.
Right.
Is there maybe at one point where you understand it's like a dream or like a perspective that never become reality? So Turkey at this point of time needs to focus on other countries getting away from the European Union?
I have to say that the Turkey's foreign diplomacy priorities have differed over the years. And I think some of the strategic implications, I believe in the, Africa, the Turkic states is more accurate now per se, and these investment will benefit in Turkey for the long run. However, we don't only seek, or at least that's what I think, we shouldn't only seek the EU membership as for the membership per se.
Exactly.
But for the values that it presents. Human rights. We are still struggling with the human rights issues, the rule of law, okay, and the freedom of choice. These are the basic principles of democracy, as well as it has the economic foundations also. I also work in the financial advisory, and you cannot bring investors if you struggle with the basic rule of law principle, and you have to establish a system that stands for the global economy market. For example, the interest rates and stuff. You know the discussions and the wrongdoings for the last couple of years. We are trying something, but what are we achieving? Nothing really. Okay, so perhaps I foresee, by the way, maybe we will be discussing later, but in the next 5 years, I see a tremendous change in political landscape in Turkey.
Okay.
And there is a high potential when government dynamics changes in political discourse. Okay, I'm not sure who will lead the country. Of course, this is very open to a discussion, but I think the Erdogan's turn is coming to an end. This is an era where it will requires a change. But however, this doesn't mean some of the things in international foreign diplomacy done by Erdogan is completely wrong. There are some things that he marked as significant contributions in a positive way for Turkey, but there are some things that requires changes, which given its current situation, it has come to an end. There is nothing within the government can establish a new paradigm to do so. So that's why a complete change may be also an interest for Europe that can strengthen our relationships. If, again, the basic matters have to respond and met.
So this is something for the future. We'll dive into this towards the end. But for now, I would like to ask, we see right now that Turkey is participating in a lot of regions when it comes to forming alliances, partnerships. Can you give us some overview in this? I know, for example, that Turkey wants to play a bigger role in the region, like in the Middle East, North Africa, but also towards its neighboring countries to the south. What can you tell us about this?
Absolutely. I think this is one of our strong suits, per se, the region establishments. However, the rest of the world, I believe we are lacking significantly. Like the western part of the world, we need a lot of progress to do. But let's maybe dive deep in our commitment to the Arab world, Africa, and Central Asia.
Yes.
Turkey's foreign policy in the 21st century has been defined by a strategic shift from its traditional Western-oriented alliances to more assertive, multidimensional approach that emphasizes regional leadership, economic diplomacy, and cultural soft power. This international strategy is particularly evident in its increased focus on the Arab world, Africa, and the Turkic-speaking nations of Central Asia. Turkey's engagement in these regions is driven by geopolitical, economic, and cultural considerations. Let's maybe talk briefly about the Arab world. The Arab world has long been a focal point of Turkey's foreign policy, with both shared historical ties and contemporary geopolitical interests. Historically, the Ottoman Empire maintained a strong presence in the Arab world for centuries, and Turkey has sought to rebuild relationships with many Arab countries in the post-Ottoman era, even as it has navigated the complexities of modern Middle Eastern politics. A key driver of Turkey's engagement with the Arab world is strategic desire to be a dominant player in the Middle East. As a major regional power, Turkey has sought to influence key geopolitical developments in the region, particularly in Syria, Iraq, and Libya. The Syrian civil war, in which Turkey has been actively involved, is a central example of this. Turkey's military interventions in northern Syria aimed at combating Kurdish groups it considers terrorist organizations as well as supporting opposition forces have had significant ramifications not just for Syria but for the broader Middle East. These actions have positioned Turkey as an influential power in the region despite tensions with powers like Russia and the United States. Turkey's commitment to the Arab world also extends to its involvement in the Arab-Israeli conflict. Turkey has been a vocal critic of Israel's policies toward Palestinians, especially in Gaza, and has positioned itself as a champion of Palestinian rights. This position resonates with many Arab countries, especially those that share Turkey's views on Palestinian issue. However, it is worth noting that Turkey's relations with certain Arab states, such as Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, have been marked by competition for regional influence, especially in the wake of the Arab Spring. Turkey has also pursued closer economic ties with Arab countries, particularly in the areas of trade, investment, and energy. The Arab world represents a significant market for Turkish exports, including textiles, construction materials, and electronics. In return, Turkey has invested in key infrastructure projects in Arab countries, including the construction and energy sectors, and have become active participants in the rebuilding of conflict-ravaged countries like Iraq and Libya, while Turkish contractors and businesses have capitalized on opportunities across the region. Now, let's look at Africa.
Yes.
Okay. Africa has become a priority for Turkey also. This is not for Turkey, but Africa is one of the fastest growing regions in the world. Okay, and Turkey has capitalized on this trend by expanding its trade relations. Bilateral trade between Turkey and African countries has grown significantly from around $5 billion in 2023 to over $25 billion in recent years. Turkey exports goods like machinery, textiles, and automotive products, while also investing in infrastructure projects such as roads, railways, and energy plants across the continent. The Turkish construction industry in particular has been a major player in Africa, with Turkish companies involved in numerous large-scale projects from dams to airports. Turkey's diplomatic presence in Africa has also grown, with Turkey establishing partnerships with numerous African states. Turkey's engagement is multifaceted, involving political dialogues, humanitarian aid, and support for African peacekeeping operations. The African Union has also become a key partner for Turkey, and in 2005, Turkey was granted observer status in the African Union, symbolizing its growing role in continental affairs. So that being said,
question from my side.
Yes.
In Africa, for example, or also in the Middle East, there are numerous countries trying to have new allies, find trade partners, such as China, as India, America has been there for a longer period of time, Germany and the European Union countries, but also other partners from Asia, like also Russia participating. What unique selling points does Turkey have here? Why should a country from Africa ally with Turkey?
Also, maybe we should look at what we gain by our investments.
Sure.
From Africa. So there are satellite and, for example, Turksat investments by Baykar. In the near future, I think we will be hearing shortly from them. We will gain investments in return from these satellite and Turksat, the telecommunications sector per se.
So everything happening in aerospace,
which is millions. However, is this enough? Of course not, because we cannot just do this with Baykar. But Baykar and its partners in this industry, I think, will be a dominant power, especially when talking about the return investments from Africa. However, also let's look at the cultural side or the educational diplomacy. Like we have an agency called TİKA. TİKA is the Turkish Cooperation and Coordination Agency, which has significant contributions in the region, like the educational exchanges or the investment in the soft power per se. So I think this will, not in short term, but in the long term, we'll have.
And we'll actually dive into this later, because we have contacts with some African students who came to Istanbul or to Ankara to discuss this. But yeah, are there other aspects? Like you mentioned many countries which are maybe not developed at the moment, or which came from a crisis situation. Why should they ally with Turkey? Coming back to that.
Well, Turkey, despite all the problematic aspects now, still has potential with respect to trade, energy, and of course some other sectors too. Also, think about it as a migrant issue too. There are lots of people coming from the variety of countries, and these are mostly third world countries that actually needs work, and so that they can send back home some money and live in better conditions. So I think this will be a stronger side for this mutual agreement. But more importantly, again, the defense engagement, along with the telecommunications engagement, will be significant in the coming years.
What do you think? How can the German-Turkish relations in the next 5 years can be shaped? And what should be aspects of a strategic partnership between Germany and Turkey? Where are our starting points?
First of all, I think maybe looking at from this point for the next 5 years moving forward, I foresee a political change in Turkey, as I mentioned earlier, which will increase more enhanced cooperation if Turkey can achieve rule of law, human rights, and freedom of choice standards. But also, I would like to note that the NATO expansion and the EU expansion for the last couple of years will have disadvantages for themselves, okay, because of many reasons. If talking about the realist international policy standards. However, this also brings more potential to Turkey than ever before, because Germany has an immediate need for such dynamics, which again doesn't necessarily mean the EU membership, okay? Because I believe the EU membership is outdated, unfortunately, because of some policies have done over the years. And also that is why the Brexit happened, and EU is still facing a lot of hardship, and we will see in the future. But this also means that Turkey can be very beneficial if the standards and the chance given to Turkey with respect to basic beginnings like visa, okay, and maybe some educational exchanges or some other customs and trade agreements.
Exactly.
It will be beneficial for Germany.
Yes.
Now more than Turkey.
For Turkey. Yes, interesting.
Yeah. That's what I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for that. So we see that you have a broad perspective on lots of geopolitical topics that we could discuss here for several hours. If our audience is curious about your work, where can they find it?
They can search the Geospatial Intelligence Institute.com. And also they can follow me in YouTube and Spotify and stuff. But before we wrap up, maybe let me briefly talk about the satellite and space aspect very shortly.
Yes.
So the TürkSat 6A satellite, as you know, Turkey has made a significant move by producing its own communication satellite with domestic capabilities. TürkSat 6A is Turkey's first indigenous communication satellite and was developed in cooperation with prominent institutions such as TürkSat, TÜBİTAK, Aselsan, TÜBİTAK Bilgem, and Turkish Aerospace Industries, which is called TUSAŞ. The production process involved comprehensive testing and prototype development. In early 2024, it was announced that the critical tests of TürkSat 6A were successfully completed and the satellite is now in preparation for launch. So that being said, the low Earth orbit satellites and satellite constellations will be an important part per se. And well, thanks for having me. And
this is a good final word.
Yes.
If you want to be a regional power, you must be good in economics and military. But if you want to be some part like somehow a world power, you must go to space. With that, thank you very much for your time. Yes, thank you very much, Aybars, for discussing with me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Ja, wir kommen gerade vom Gespräch mit Herrn Öztuna. Ein sehr interessantes Gespräch über Türkeis Rolle in der Welt. Ich habe das Gespräch geführt. Fredo, wie siehst du das? Du hast im Background im Hintergrund gesessen und zugehört. Was ist dein Eindruck vom Gespräch?
Ja, erstmal wirklich ein Kompliment auch an dich und Herrn Öztuna. Das war ein sehr spannendes Gespräch. Auch ihr seid sehr tief gegangen in viele Themen. Ich fand vor allem auch dieses ganze Thema Aerospace, Datenausnutzung, da hat er wirklich eine Nische, wirklich, die man sich nochmal genauer angucken sollte. Vielleicht, was ich noch ergänzen würde, jetzt auch mit meiner Expertise aus dem Afrika-Podcast, Afrika für Allmanns, für alle Interessierten war, also ihr habt, glaube ich, viele Dinge angesprochen, die Türkei wirklich einzigartig machen in Bezug auf Afrika. Was man auf jeden Fall noch mal hervorheben muss, denke ich auch für euch als Hörer, die Türkei hat wirklich eine einzigartige Ausgangslage. Zum einen aufgrund ihrer geografischen Lage. Es ist das einzige afro-eurasische Land der Welt und damit natürlich auch ein Netzwerk, ne? Wie gesagt, immer wieder den Flughafen in jedes Land außerhalb von Amerika als bester Zugangsort. Und zweitens diese Kombination aus einer multipolaren, aber auch muslimischen Verbindung, die Türkei repräsentiert. Und ganz viele arabisch geprägte oder auch subsaharische Länder Afrikas haben eben auch muslimische Bevölkerungsanteile. Ne? Ein bisschen, ne? Edwin, Tansania, aber auch Somalia. Und dort hat die Türkei einfach nochmal einen direkteren Zugriff, weil sie diese Dinge zusammenbringt. Wie findest du das? Gab es aus deiner Sicht noch Punkte, die du hervorheben willst im Nachgang an das Gespräch?
Also wir hätten natürlich gerne 2 oder 3 Stunden darüber sprechen können. Für mich ist ganz besonders noch interessant, neben dem afrikanischen Teil, dass die Türkei eben auch versucht, die Turkvölker einzubinden. Und das ist etwas, worauf man echt noch schauen muss, weil neben den Turkstaaten in Zentralasien und im Kaukasus und in Europa gibt es eben noch Minderheiten, auch in Russland und China, die sie versuchen auch einzubinden. Und das würde natürlich auf der einen Seite großes Potenzial bieten, eine Turkvolk-Bewegung zu schaffen oder neben der Organisation, die es bereits existiert, aber eben auch Konfliktpotenzial beherbergt. Und das ist eben etwas, worauf man noch schauen sollte. Also neben Afrika, Zentralasien ist der Kaukasus und sind diese Turkvölker eine wirklich spannende Möglichkeit.
Ich glaube, jetzt sollten wir das Ganze vielleicht nochmal vertiefen mit einer Gesprächssituation auf der Gegenseite in Deutschland. Genau. Da werden wir euch nochmal einen Experten zu liefern und dann habt ihr, denke ich, das ideale Bild zur geopolitischen Lage hier in der Türkei und in Deutschland.
Türkgedisi ist der Podcast über die deutsch-türkischen Beziehungen. Neben Wirtschaft, Politik, Geschichte und Sicherheit geht es auch um die gemeinsame Kultur. Von Fußball bis Kunst. Im Gespräch mit Expertinnen und Experten wollen wir die Herausforderungen benennen und das Potenzial einer starken Brücke zwischen Deutschland und der Türkei aufzeigen.